Welcome back, everybody. A brand new report on the terror attack in Libya out today, placing blame on both the State Department and the White House for not providing enough security. On Meet the Press yesterday, President Obama assured the American people that those responsible are being held accountable.
After the attack in Benghazi, is there a need for more accountability so that this doesn't happen again?
Some individuals have been held accountable inside of the State Department. My message to the State Department's been very simple, and that is, we're going to solve this. We're not going to be defensive about it. We're not going to pretend that this was not a problem. This was a huge problem. And we're going to implement every single recommendation that's been put forward.
But some of those employees are still on the payroll. In fact, they were simply reassigned, according to the report in the New York Post. Here now are Washington insiders this morning, Republican strategist Michael Barnes and Democratic political strategist Christy Setzer. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Dave.
Michael, let's start with you. Is this enough, the president's explanation of how things went down and what he's done to correct the problem?
No, it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been enough since day one when the president denied that this was a terrorist attack, and ultimately Hillary Clinton had to step up and take responsibility in order for the president then to say, no, it's actually my fault. Now that there is an independent fact-finding result that shows that the administration is responsible, we're seeing that maybe there's some shifting of chairs over at the State Department, but ultimately the president has successfully managed to diminish this issue of national security to one of a personnel issue, and it's really bad for the purposes of national security. And my heart goes out to the families of the victims as they start a new year without their loved ones.
Senator Susan Collins had this to say on the subject. Quote, if we can put this up, terrorists essentially walked right into the Benghazi compound unimpeded and set it ablaze due to extremely poor security and a threat environment that was clearly flashing red. Christy, does the president need to do more to clear up this problem and explain what went wrong?
Well, Dave, there were 29 recommendations that were laid out by the Accountability Board that's headed by former Ambassador Thomas Pickering, a man that has a 4-decade career in foreign service. Secretary of State Clinton has said that she will undertake all of those recommendations. The president has confirmed that. So I do believe that there is a process in place and one that is being undertaken after a thorough review. I think that one thing that this whole tragedy has underscored is the need for greater security of our embassies and of our diplomats. And that is why it is particularly troubling that the House Republican-controlled caucus in their latest budget voted to cut embassy security by $500 million. The budget laid out by Paul Ryan attempted to do the same thing.
That, of course, had nothing to do with the Benghazi attack, as I'm sure you can acknowledge. They never...
I believe that Sure, Dave, the question is, why are Republicans latecomers to this issue on our security? Why is it such an issue now?
Well, national security is an issue that has to come from the president. The president has to take leadership. And when he's now about to gut defense by 9%, how can you say that there's any sort of priority at the federal level for greater security of any sort? We've got to deal with the fiscal issues some way or another.
Let's go there.
And if the president's
the
president's not taking leadership, Congress has to.
Christy, the president slammed Republicans yesterday on Meet the Press when it comes to the fiscal cliff handling. Is that the right way to start a negotiation with 2 days left before the fiscal cliff? Or should he be the one sitting down and trying to hammer out a deal with whether it be Senate Republicans or House Republicans? And do you think a deal gets done?
I'll start with the last question first. I do think that a deal eventually gets done. I think it might be past January 1st. I think we will briefly go over the fiscal cliff. The fact is, though, that the president has been working on this issue for months and months and months. Let's not forget that this entire, quote, crisis is an issue of Congress's own making. And the fact is that when the president was taping that Meet the Press interview on Saturday, House Republicans were still back in their districts, cozy, doing nothing on the fiscal cliff. John Boehner had already taken himself out of the negotiations. He'd absolutely abdicated responsibility and said that he would, deal with whatever the Senate and the president had come to. I think there's a lot of good proposals on the table, and I do think that something's going to get done very soon.
It appears that Senate Republicans, at least, Michael, have come a long way in shedding their desire for no taxes raised on the wealthy. From what I understand, $550,000 threshold for couples, again, I think is significant compromise. But can they get anything through the House in terms of getting enough Republican votes if a bill emerges out of the Senate today?
I don't think that sort of bill will get through the House, and I think it should not. Remember, the House was elected in order to protect the United States from additional Obamacare types of spending, and so they've got to fulfill their obligations to the voters. From the president's perspective, this is a charade. The president has stated all along that he wants to raise taxes on people with incomes over $250K. He wants to gut defense. He gets a chance to do this. Patty Murray, the incoming Senate Budget Committee chairwoman, tipped the president's hand during the election when she said that, well, it's okay if we go off the fiscal cliff, because then we, the Democrats, get credit when we then cut taxes back to the levels that they were at before the fiscal cliff crisis occurred. So this is a political issue for them to be able to attain their ideological goals.
Some have suggested the president is okay with going off the cliff because of the blame. I want to correct one thing on the military. The president has said he does not want sequestration to go into effect by any means. He's been very clear about that. Hopefully they work it out. Michael Barnes, Christy Setzer, thank you both for joining us from D.C.
Thanks, Dave.